Monday morning, so we have quite an extensive casualty report. Let's go through it quickly. This morning, a car bomb exploded near a military bus carrying troops going to work in the northern Lebanese city of Tripoli, killing at least 5 people and injuring 25 others. A senior military official told the Associated Press that 4 soldiers were among the dead. It was the second deadly attack targeting troops in northern Lebanon in less than 2 months. Apparently, the car was packed with explosives and was on the side of a road, detonated by remote control as the bus drove by it. The blast tossed the car about a dozen yards. It occurred during the morning rush hour. Also this morning, a fire broke out earlier at one of Britain's biggest children's hospitals, injuring 4 firefighters and forcing the hospital's cardiac wing to evacuate. The fire began on the 5th floor of the cardiac wing at the Great Ormond Street Hospital. Patients were moved to another part. No patients or staff were injured. Patients scheduled for procedures today were sent home. The firefighters that were injured were sent to another hospital. A gas cylinder is suspected to have been involved in the fire. The hospital was founded in 1852 as the Hospital for Sick Children, and the author, J.M. Barrie, bequeathed the hospital the copyrights to his children's classic Peter Pan, so it's well endowed. Also on Saturday, a fire destroyed the main hall of Egypt's National Theater right in the heart of downtown Cairo. 3 firemen were injured. Billowing white smoke filled the busy Ataba Square as 22 engines responded to the alarm. Dozens of riot police were deployed to keep onlookers back. Never understood that. I guess they were going to run into the fire. A major general with the Civil Defense Force on the scene described the fire as almost contained, this after high winds drove the flames into neighboring shops and buildings. The fire began with an electrical short that caused an explosion in the theater's air conditioning system. It began just after the sunset evening meal Saturday during the Islamic fasting month of Ramadan. The theater was originally built in 1935 but had been recently renovated. In August, Egypt's upper house of parliament, also in the same downtown area, was devastated by a massive fire. That fire provoked popular outrage at the incompetence of the fire department, and it was described as the latest failing of a government unable to take care of its population. Also on Saturday, 2 strong earthquakes rocked the Philippine capital of Manila almost simultaneously, but no damage or tsunami alerts were reported. The Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology said a moderately strong tremor struck at 11:04 a.m. Saturday local time, followed by a stronger one 5 minutes later. The quake struck off the coast of Mamburao Township, about 100 miles south of Manila. The U.S. Geological Survey reported that the first quake was 5.6 and the second one was 6.1. Also over the weekend, a rare hurricane spun past Maine and hit Canada, the first time in 17 years that those folks up there have been on hurricane alert. Heavy rain pounded the U.S.'s northeastern tip last night as residents hunkered down while the weakening storm passed through the Gulf of Maine and then into the Canadian Maritimes. Maine emergency responders were bracing for wind gusts as high as 60 miles per hour and 20-foot waves, but the Category 1 storm took a turn to the east and it made landfall in Nova Scotia and it pressed northeastward toward New Brunswick. A tropical storm warning was lifted later last night. In Canada, the storm arrived on the 5th anniversary of Hurricane Juan, which was a Category 2 storm that killed 2 people and caused an estimated $100 million in damage. And in Vietnam, the death toll from floods triggered by Typhoon Hagaput rose to 41. This is as rescue workers began to reach isolated villages devastated by the storm, which apparently has caused about $65 million in damage. 10,000 houses were damaged, 1,000 homes were washed away. The storm slammed into northern Vietnam on Thursday after killing 10 people in China. Typhoon Zhangmi roared toward eastern China today after it belted Taiwan with torrential rains and powerful winds that killed 2 people and injured more than 30. Zhangmi is the 4th and most powerful typhoon to hit Taiwan this year. Zhangmi was downgraded to a tropical storm early today as it moved north toward eastern China. However, offices and schools in Taiwan were still closed today, as was the stock market. The Taipei International Airport did begin operations this morning. Power was cut to 90,000 homes as the area was hit by gusts of up to 140 miles per hour, the highest level that the weather department's equipment can measure. Strong winds overturned a bus on a highway, injuring 36 passengers, and also in the resort area of Alishan, 32 inches of rain fell overnight. That's 0.8 of a meter. And in the Atlantic, the National Hurricane Center says that subtropical storm Laura has formed about 1,000 miles west of the Azore Islands, and it's moving west-northwest at about 8 miles per hour with maximum sustained winds of about 60 miles per hour. The Hurricane Center says that Laura is not expected to hit any land areas, but will only be a threat to shipping interests in the northern Atlantic. Yesterday, Syria hinted at foreign involvement in a deadly weekend car bombing, with its state-run media saying that the objective is to undermine Damascus's efforts to emerge from years of international isolation. Saturday's 440-pound car bomb near a Syrian government security complex on the southern outskirts of Damascus killed 17 people. It was the biggest and deadliest explosion in the tightly controlled country since the 1980s. No one has claimed responsibility for the explosion. However, Syrian officials have so far avoided accusing any group, saying it was a terrorist act only. The government-owned newspaper Al Thurah claimed in an editorial yesterday that recent attacks in Syria, including this one, were planned outside Syria. However, the comment, they did not mention any names, but the comment comes a week after Syria massed thousands of troops on its border with neighboring Lebanon. President Bashar Assad warned recently that extremist forces were operating in northern Lebanon seeking to destabilize Syria. Though Syria has long been viewed by the United States as a destabilizing force in the Middle East, the country has been trying in recent months to change its image and end years of isolation. President Assad has in fact pursued indirect peace talks with Israel and says he wants more direct talks this year. Puerto Rico anticipates 20 more years of flooded streets. This is according to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. This is their logo here. The Corps says that it will take another 20 years before it can control Puerto Rico's infamous flooding problems because no money is available. The Corps of Engineers said that more than $1 billion U.S. is needed for flood control projects, but as of right now, they anticipate the government will only pay for 4 projects that will come up to about a total of $80 million. Thus, the majority of San Juan will remain vulnerable to flooding for the next 20 years. The comments came in a radio interview yesterday from the director of the Corps of Engineers, just as Puerto Rico is struggling to clean up after it rained 24 inches in one day last week. And an update on the Somali pirates. An American military spokesman said that several U.S. warships are now surrounding a ship that had a delivery of arms shipments on it that was hijacked by Somali pirates. The U.S. Navy's Bahrain-based Fifth Fleet says that an unspecified number of destroyers and cruisers are within a 10-mile radius of the Ukraine-operated ship the Faina. The Faina is carrying 33 tanks plus rifles and ammunition. The United States fears that the delivery could fall into the hands of Islamic insurgents fighting the Somali government. The Navy says that the Navy will remain on station to monitor negotiations between the pirates and the ship company. One of the European crew on board the ship apparently died of high blood pressure. According to the captain, we have 21 members on board. One of them is dead. He's been put into the cold locker. He's sick, was sick. Preposterously, even as the ship is surrounded by Navy forces, the attackers are now demanding a $20 million ransom for the vessel. The Russian Navy has now, in fact, joined the group and now has a destroyer on scene as well. This is really something that's begun to attract some international attention. It seems as if they've finally gone too far this time. So we'll see what happens there. And our final story, this is from the Royal Gazette in Bermuda this morning, down in Hamilton. Apparently a 39-year-old father said a 200-pound female passenger on his motorcycle caused him to fall, not the police car he ran into while he was driving drunk. 39-year-old Troy Harris of Pembroke pled guilty in magistrate's court on Friday to drunk driving, but disagreed with the chain of events presented by the Crown Counsel. The Crown Counsel said that on September 21st at about 1 a.m., police officers in a marked police car had pulled over on Rambling Road in Pembroke to allow Mr. Harris and his passenger to pass. As he was overtaking the police car, Harris fell against the rear door of the police car and fell to the ground.